Daniel's here. Correctivity, and thereby systemic homeostasis, sovereignty, and autonomy of European peoples, genus and species. Get comfortable. We're going to be here for a while this evening. And you should be forewarned. We will be dealing with this in terms of this creature, this character that emerged. Now, Paul Gottfried has warned us about it. It emerged somewhere, about 2008. And beware. It's a creature. It's a character, a characterology called the left. Yes. The left is on the prowl. And we're going to be handing out coloring books. Millennial Woes is handing out coloring books so that you and your kids can get familiar with its contours and its, what it does. Yeah. And free coloring books for those who can answer the question, who has had sex with more men? Is it Millennial Woes or Conops / Spiritual Mamser's girlfriend? Okay. Having a little fun there. Now then, let's see. I guess it's about 8:30 Los Angeles time. And the Rams have those uniforms that look like they should be on the side of a road, traffic neon or fluorescent. So as not to miss that yellow color. They do have a good white receiver. Apparently, they do go along with a white quarterback. So you can perhaps root for some individual players. I wouldn't recommend even that. But it is surprising these days to see a successful wide receiver. Okay then. Resuming our normal program here and platform, which we will demonstrate as usual is the solid and sound platform, second to none, in advocacy of European peoples. Encouraging me to say that, in fact, is an article, the most recent article over at Dr. Kevin McDonald's site by Edmund Connolly, I believe his name. He has a PhD. These are not stupid people. Not questioning their logical abilities or the amount of their erudition. But an article basically lauding Tan Staffel and his articulation of the kosher question. And I've discussed Tan before, so I won't go into as much detail. I'll mention I'll highlight a few things because it's necessary. It's important. It's an important distinction to make because, Tan is like he's like a epistemologically speaking, he's like a piece of gunk caught up the chute, the poop chute that's going from the right-wing boomers down through into the millennial internet bubbles that are buffered from reality testing of their pro-Nazi worldview. And as you should be aware by now, this platform is not not by any stretch of the imagination Nazi. We don't accept Hitler redemptionism, Holocaust denial. We're not out to kill people, let alone genocide them. We don't see that as a necessary objective. Not even to exploit them. We have other means to negotiate our concerns and objectives. We're not right wing, and the attendant blind spots of that, and so we are rejecting the Abrahamic religions as not conducive to a moral order that would function in defense of our people. And another important plank of our platform would be that we recognize the kosher folks as other, as non-European, and distinguishably as such. We just don't consider them to be in our in-group, and because we are clear to maintain that we don't see the need to harm anybody, that we are merely establishing we're looking to take a separate path and chart a course for our people, protecting us. We also have, we are also in position because we're on solid moral ground. We're not supremacists. We're not imperialists. We don't commit the epistemological blunder of natural fallacy. We are accountable. And therefore, we maintain it's valid to render a working hypothesis that the kosher folks, for one, are a separate people from us, and we recognize patterns of they're having different interests, which tend to conflict with ours, making them indifferent, if not antagonistic at times. And we have the right to defend ourselves. Now, and furthermore, it's important for a non and even anti-Nazi platform to focus on that issue, because if we don't do it, for example, then the true believing Nazis will purport the argument that they are the only ones taking this matter seriously, and there is reason to believe there's very valid working hypotheses that they are that their people are playing a part in imposing, let's say, liberalism upon us. By liberalism, I mean opening our borders and boundaries, and not allowing us to, not allowing for our homeostasis, our our species maintenance. Uh, so I began by talking about Tan Staffel and how he's the subject of the featured article at the Occidental Observer, and I and a few podcasts ago I had gone into the background of some of my disputes with him, and I'll go into that again in a bit with a digression that to address something that was gnawing at me a bit, that Tiffany said and where she was coming from last time, and I certainly don't want to. I certainly don't want to be overly critical of the things of her at this point. She's pretty new to this, and I'm sure that she means well in coming in and offering mitigating how can I say this? Mitigating what she sees as affirmation of reactionary positions. And for the most part, that's been appreciated, of course. But I have been involved with this struggle, so to speak, for quite a while now, and one of the issues that newcomers aren't familiar with, and I'm going to include as newcomers Tiffany, OV fuck you. That's handle. I'm not just being profane for the devil of it. And academic agent. What they don't understand is that there's a difference between mainstream media and WN media, media that's basically intent on serving or catering to audiences of white people, of European peoples. And in the mainstream media, of course, the Nazis and Hitler are seen as the ultimate devil. Yes, that's true. But someone like academic agent, as a newcomer, and I would put Rams Paul in this category too. Doesn't understand that within the WN perspective, which is where a lot of us people, look first to get news and information, not mainstream media. The situation is quite the opposite. It's rather than it's being the greatest taboo to say that the Nazis are okay. It's almost the greatest taboo to criticize the Nazis and Hitler, and to say, well, I'm sorry, but I do think that the Holocaust was true. This is like considered, this is considered the greatest evil. I mean, they're that absurd. And just as a digression, as I look at some of these Holocaust survivors' accounts, for one thing, and knowing what Dr. Linder found, what he investigated for us on, and some of the other denials, I'm glad for myself and for anybody who's wise enough to listen to me that they will have no part of the denial shit. Really. On the other hand, when you hear these accounts, you can also get a sense of the kind of fervor that might be instilled in reaction of some of these people when they have power to impose liberalism on Europeans, even ones, overcompensatingly, even on ones who come from backgrounds that had nothing whatsoever to do with Nazism. I mean, understand, not to say that it's right they're doing that. It's not. But you begin to understand the kind of that kind of reaction on their part. Having said that, it's not going to help to deny the Holocaust. It's not going to help to try to redeem Hitler and to state that you want to kill people, and that you think it's funny and that sort of thing. In the arguments with Tanstaffel, I was looking through them, and again, I'm going to touch upon this article that's at Occidental Observer. There was one point that I made that I would pat myself on the back for in particular. The essence of it, the gist of one of the things that I said was that, yes, and this is a point that I'd make to Tiffany. Yes, we indeed we don't want to lay guilt trip on this generation of Germans or any other white people. There's it's uncalled for, and I'm totally against that. On the other hand, there is a responsibility to not elevate Hitler beyond serious reproach, Hitler and Nazism beyond serious reproach, and to gloss over the negative aspects of Hitler and his Reich. I think that that's well said on my part. I say that in the context of Tiffany, academic agent, and others not quite understanding, perhaps, again, that not only has Hitler redemptionism and Holocaust denial and that sort of thing been have not only has it had too much place, it shouldn't have had any, but it's had, not only has that had reared its ugly head in supposed advocacy of white people and is not, but also there is too much of an attitude, a tasteless disrespect, a tasteless trivializing of the issues of the atrocities of the Nazis, and there certainly were, and minimizing of it. I think that Tiffany accidentally fell into in one instance when I was discussing an important issue of the example of Goodrich and his propaganda movie, the quote, greatest story never told. And this is a perfect example of how within WN Hitler redemptionism and is normal, and criticizing him is it's backwards from the mainstream, where Hitler's the greatest evil in this branch of WN, criticizing Hitler is and treating the Holocaust like it was real and whatnot. That's considered the great taboo. So when I said, for example, I stopped watching that movie and looked upon it with great scorn after it portrayed the Bromberg incident as if it was a precipitating factor of the war, when it happened 3 days after the start of the war, when the Polish army was retreating and found what they were fired upon and executed some people that in the panic of the moment they considered to be fifth columnists. Rightly or wrongly, that happened after the start of the war, in the heat of the and tragedy of the moment of the attack. And finally, the Nazis more than made up for it, killing 10 times as many as was their policy of Polish civilians. So I really don't want to hear about it. But what was really the horrific misrepresentation of Goodrich's thing, the story, greatest story untold, and where I stopped watching it was when he was rolling down the screen in slow motion that the Poles had killed 58,000 German civilians. And now you know the story of this was that Hitler asked Goebbels and his other propagandists to come up with a figure of German civilians supposedly killed by Poles between the wars. They came up with a figure 5,800. Hitler said, "Okay, multiply by that by 10 and put it in the news." First of all, the original figure is highly dubious. In what context and so forth. That's not to say that somewhere along the line, Poles and ultra nationalists or drunken individuals or whomever couldn't have killed some Germans that wrongly. But for an important digression for a moment, ultimately, even were that were the case, the Nazis more than made up for it with someone, just 1,000 times over. And when you consider someone like what Oscar Dirlewanger did, yeah, I mean, just drop it already. Because I don't want to lay guilt trips on anybody. I don't want them laying guilt, but I certainly don't want them laying guilt trips on me. Anyway, this Goodrich guy, with his really garbage, what's it, 6 hour long greatest story never told propaganda film promoting Hitler, trying to justify and redeem Hitler, was being called by J.F. Garippi a major historian. I hear Garippi saying something like that, and I believe that he has 128 IQ. This guy's decidedly subgenius and irresponsible. Now, speaking of newcomers, in that regard, one of the OV fuck you in his attacks on me, when he had the chance, when I happened to, when in the misfortune of being in his company, asked me if I wanted to talk to this guy Goodrich. Why the hell would I want to talk to him? This whole theory that an idiot like OV has, or that these people these millennials in their internet bubble have, is that it's completely absurd. I mean, you're not going to rally. You're not going to unify white people under Hitler. You're not going to unify when you're making calls for violence. When you are trying to redeem Hitler, when you are denying the Holocaust, you're just gonna creep people out and divide them. And it's not. I shouldn't even have to make this argument. It's totally ridiculous. So that's what I would. That's what I wanted to say with Tiffany when she was like, kind of like, so I kind of understand OV. He was on the beach and his mother married a Jewish guy, and there's with this cute little Nazi flag. I'm like, no. This has been a problem and an albatross for white advocacy for decades now. It's obvious that it is something to be put aside. No, Hitler was not the only one who understood the question. He did not have the best way of dealing with it. And just to give you, and so when I said to Tiffany that, well, here's Goodrich running this Goebbels propaganda, she said, well, everybody had propaganda. I understand. This is the problem with the American perspective on these matters. The perspective of most Americans, they've been fed a currency where unburdening the guilt of that is the major objective, and it's overcompensating in measure. So a dash of responsibility to not be quite so mitigating. In this one instance, I'm being a little bit picky, but it's important. Where Hitler said, well, everybody had not everybody had propaganda like Goebbels. Not everybody is putting out a lie on top of a lie, like Poles killed 58,000 German civilians, and therefore Hitler was justified in going in there and committing mass atrocities against the Poles, which they did. So it's not about making Germans, especially of this generation, feel guilty. But don't, the thing is to not be ridiculous and not be irresponsibly trivializing of the matters of World War II. And I'm afraid that someone like Academic Agent doesn't understand. This is the problem. This is the problem, Academic Agent, not boomers who are in the mainstream media and saying the Nazis are the ultimate evil. The problem for us, and Rams Paul doesn't understand this either. He thinks, oh, it's so funny that they want to call us a Nazi. Nobody's a Nazi. There are true believers. There are not just OVs. There's Warren Ballas. There's David Duke, who'll never say anything bad about Hitler. There are true believers. And of the particularly those are the boomer truth regime, quote, truth regime right wingers that are the problem. The big problem for white advocacy. Because we're not going to get on, we're going to be divided and conquered with that stuff. And it's completely unnecessary. This is not, and this is where, this platform is vastly superior. Well, we'll put it in starker terms. It's correct, whereas it is the correct platform, whereas Ten Staffels is not. When Wolf Wall Street said that because he loves Hitler and the Nazis, he said that Ten Staffel was the greatest epistemologist in white advocacy. It offended me so much because it's so totally untrue. That is so what Ten Staffel is not. Is a great epistemologist. He's not even good. What he is, he's extremely logical, articulates, relatively known issues that have been spoken about by Kevin McDonald and others, about the JQ. Does it very well. And as I've said to him, I think that people focusing on that issue is perfectly valid. However, it's funny that this article has been posted at this article by Edmund Connolly lauding Ten Staffel is at Occidental Observer because Ten Staffel's campaign of, which reached paranoid levels, really. When against criticizing McDonald exactly for trying to go into our part in our plight. McDonald was going with was trying to develop this idea of pathological altruism. And I can agree it's not particularly good. And Tan diagnoses one source of the problem, of course, which would be Jared Taylor, who is all too kosher friendly and all too eager to divert from that issue and put perhaps more blame on ourselves than or not enough blame on them for the liberalism that's being imposed on us. So while it may be true, while it is true that McDonald's he's not a philosopher, and he's not, let alone an up-to-date philosopher. So he's not drawing upon the best resources for handling these matters. He's trying to do it like a scientist, or through a psychological perspective, that sort of thing. While it's not true, he's not handling the situation as well as can be. I tried to explain to Tan Staffel. I was taking McDonald's side. And what happens, of course, I'm the one, who winds up getting blackballed and Tan Staffel because, all the Nazi sympathizers and everything rally behind him. Typical right-wing shit. Anyway, I tried to explain to him that our part in this, that and how my platform, I was beginning to articulate it. It was saying, well, I know there's a pathology, there's got to be a pathogen. I suppose, but there's not only one pathogen, Tan. There is, and the way I'm looking at it, which is vastly superior to your way of looking at it, is that there are vulnerabilities to our system, which can be exploited. Not only by the kosher folks, though those are most expert exploiting these vulnerabilities. And I begin to explain to them that objectivism, and the Cartesianism of the two extremes of Cartesianism are at the core. They said, well, I've been, it's like, and I said, I noticed that you kind of talking about this way too, over to some, over at Renegade, these Nazi sympathizers, and it's like, and I'd appreciate it if maybe you gave a little hat tip in my direction. And I think that you're catering to these Nazis is it's fucking irresponsible. Is what it is. Tend to great exception to this. I don't have to give you credit for anything. I've been talking about this. I can show you my source for how Europeans favor objectivity. Go back to this. I don't remember the German guy's name. 2012. I've been talking about it since 1990, and articulating it far better than you. And this platform, which doesn't hold like you do, that the project should be to wipe out the kosher folks, and then once that's done, all the problems will take care of themselves. Well, first of all, and especially when you are saying, as you had, what did Tan say to me? He said, I'm waiting for this to load. Tan Staffel on July 2004, July 3rd, 2014. Jen, just to make it clear, my problem wasn't with Hitler and National Socialism. I don't even like the word National Socialism. That's a euphemism for Nazism. But anyway, one digression. Now, 2014, OV fuck you's balls hadn't even dropped yet. He was still, he hadn't even got to a stage where he was a Bernie boy yet. And this, and he's gonna, try to lambaste me and say that I'm the one who doesn't use backwards and doesn't know what he's talking about and whatnot. Anyway, so there's a story behind that comment that Tanstaff will make there. He has no problem with Hitler, right? Now, again, that's his platform. That Hitler was really okay. He has all these people, and probably him too, saying, if not a hoax, probably saying that it's no big deal or whatever about the Holocaust, and and has at times even talked about getting on with the same things that Hitler wanted to do. And well, you're not going to, when you do that, when you deny the Holocaust, when you try to redeem Hitler, when you talk about killing people, you're not going to bring Europeans together. You're not going to unite them. They're not going to rally behind your point of view. And you are doing the enemy a favor, or the antagonist, let's call them the antagonist, a favor, disrupting our would-be homeostasis, which would be perfectly fine with setting Jewry as other, having different interests, often antagonistic, but outside us, and we are on solid ground to critique them at arm's length, knowing that we're not, up to all this ghoulish nonsense, and knowing that we have our systemic homeostasis to attend to, which does mean, contrary to your paranoia, that when we look at our part in creating vulnerabilities, for right-wingers to take the payoff, for liberals to take the license and the licentiousness offered, to violate our boundaries in both cases, that we are in position for homeostasis, for the sovereignty of our people, the autonomy of our people. Now, you say, Tan, that you see that you take the kosher folks as a mortal enemy. Well, whether they are or not, you're not going to rally our people by, to a sufficiently robust defense and homeostasis by denying the undeniable reality of the Holocaust. Maybe you don't like that word. Use another word, but you know what I mean. By saying that you want to kill people, by trying to redeem Hitler and the Nazis, you're not going to do our cause any good whatsoever, and you're not going to unite our people in capacity to defend ourselves against the kosher folks, especially if they are a mortal enemy. We wouldn't be in position to defend ourselves. You'd be playing into their hands. And then But while we have our systemic in order, our hermeneutic process of survey in order, we're looking at each problematic interface as it occurs, whether it's black biopower or Islamic terrorism, you name it. These are all issues. And if we attend to one, that does not mean that we are short shrifting the kosher problem or or kosher antagonism. Get over your paranoia. Because that's what it is. You tried to say that you had these three words you put together. Although they'll always say that we're mad, crazy, sick if we, I think that I said that you were a bit myopic or something like this. But, I didn't say you were crazy. But we have a whole system to look after and different interfaces of concern at different times. I'm all for, when you put with this radar tracking system in place, I'm all for putting a vigil on the kosher folks in place number one. Maybe 1B, 1A. It can change. As I said, our place, the place of the vulnerabilities created by our right wingers and liberals and liberalism. Sometimes that's number one. The traitorism that results of that. But I'm not going to stand by and endorse you or anybody else when they say something like you don't have a problem with Hitler and quote National Socialism. That's a big problem. Now, again, I've told this story before, but it bears repeating. I came to the Voice of Reason Network basically to argue an argument with Carolyn Yeager. It was an absurd Nazi woman. And was there for a while, writing articles. And Tan would come on the network as a guest. Articulate as he was, this was a network that certainly had a pro-Nazi bias among several of its hosts. Not all of them. Jamie Kelso was against that, and of course I was. And some were just liberals. They were being treated as entrees into and to channel people towards the ultimate Carolyn Yeager. Jeez. But anyway, so Tan Stoffel came on, and eventually Carolyn Yeager decided to leave the network because there were some of the hosts were interviewing non-whites and Jewish people, and she didn't like that. And whatever, I didn't understand why that would put an end to the network. But who the hell is she? Woman's an idiot. But anyway, Tan decided to go along with her because he agreed with her that they wanted to do a show that would only have white people on it. So he developed this website and podcast called The White Network with Carolyn Yeager and Hatting Scott, who's a really terrible person, a rabid Nazi. And so he was doing his shows there, and many of those shows that Ten did some with Carolyn Yeager, I think. Hatting Scott was reading Hitler's Table Talk and some other things with Carolyn Yeager, doing her interviewing Holocaust deniers and all the stupid shit that she would do. But Tan Staffel's shows by himself were usually pretty good. He was articulating, some of the things that the kosher folks were up to, and did a good podcast about their crypsis, developing this observation of Kevin McDonald about the crypsis. It is an important point because a lot of people think that the kosher folks are, quote, white. That is to say that they're European or just the same as us. They certainly, many of them certainly look that way, and that's called crypsis. It's a natural phenomenon when creatures evolve to blend in with their environment. That is to say, the environment of whites. So to maintain that distinction is important because they are a different people with different interests, conflicting interests usually. Anyway, so the point is that and Edmund Connolly is calling attention to this in his recent article at the Occidental Observer. Okay. I thought this too. Tanstaff was clearly an intelligent guy, and he's seeing what he's explaining. What he sees is the gravity of this issue. Fine. Those of us who are swayed by Kevin McDonald, as I have been, it's like, can agree. This is no trivial matter, and we have to defend ourselves. But I could never abide by Carolyn Yeager. I mean, the woman is, a Nazi. She's about redeeming Hitler, denying the Holocaust, and she hates any European people that Hitler would have hated. So I'd listen to the shows, and mainly listening to Tan, and disappointed in him that he would side up with her. But he's kind of a sympathetic voice. Then one day, Hatting Scott and Carolyn Yeager were reading Hitler's Table Talk, and they came to a chapter where Hitler was discussing his plans for Ukraine and Ukrainians. And it's disgusting, of course. He's basically talking about making them slaves and the Nazis viceroys of the land, and saying how the Ukrainians were, just the Untermensch, and Carolyn Yeager was saying, "Oh, they're like the N-words." Really, really disgusting. And like the next day, Tan Staffel was saying, I feel good about all white people, and I really, I don't agree with Carolyn when she says that something to that. He said, I don't agree with her that when she says that. when something to the effect that when she wants to antagonize other European peoples, when she only wants to advocate Germans or Germanics. And I thought, well, hey, okay, Tan, welcome aboard. We're good to go. You see the light now. That Hitler's platform, his worldview doesn't work. I want to advocate all Europeans, Germans, of course, too, but everybody, all of us are nationalists. And this is what I'm thinking. And quite reasonably, look what Hitler was saying about the Ukrainians. It was disgusting. So I arrange an interview with guest worker at Majority Rights. And, it goes, I haven't listened to it in a while. It was fairly good. They were talking about the history of Majority Rights and how he appreciated how guest worker had the fortitude to discuss this issue. And I was still thinking in terms of inviting Tan on as a contributor to Majority Rights. And, wow, great, quite logically intelligent guy. And then I'm finding out that the guy's really weird. And he's called, when I'm explaining things, he's trying to say that I'm using jargon that he's ridiculing me for rejecting Hitler. He's calling that my bugbear. And he comes out with the comment, like I said, Daniel, just to make it clear, my problem wasn't with Hitler and National Socialism. His problem was with Carolyn Yeager's personality. But Hitler, that's okay. This is who is being lauded at the Occidental Observer. This is who, and his Age of Treason blog post, you have people scurrying there when I made Majority Rights into a Hitler-free platform and doing everything they could to drive me away, to make, to blackball me, to make me seem like I was the backwards one, the bad one, because I don't advocate Hitler. I don't deny the Holocaust. I don't think this stuff is funny and a good thing to try to redeem. Nick Dean saying, "Oh well, GW, what are you going to do about? He belongs in the psych ward. What are you going to do about it?" Speaking of me, this is the kind of people that's over there at Tan Staffel's site. Nasty people. Like I said, I don't know. You can say, well, maybe Tan Staffel's overcompensating for the fact that he married a Jewish woman before he was aware of this issue, or maybe on a deeper level, less forgivably even, he thinks that he has a get out of jail free card for promoting this stuff that's already gotten over 50 million Europeans killed. I'm not going to stand for it just because he's too stupid to make a few logical moves. He calls me. He says that my logic is poor. Here's Hitler saying this stuff about Ukrainians, and and he's saying, and ten is saying, well, I feel good about all Europeans, and by the way, I have no problem with Hitler and National Socialism. Where is your logic? Where is your judgment? The greatest epistemologist, Wolf Wall Street? Clearly not. As I said, Hitler was his blunder was founded in might makes right, and the void of accountability that comes on that natural fallacy. The trajectory of this disaster was inherent in his worldview, and he was a warmonger was clear. It's clear from the first page of Mein Kampf. An imperialist supremacist. He wasn't fighting a defensive war. He wasn't justified. Thanks, Bigger. So this is where people newbies like Millennial Woes, an academic agent, this is where the real problem, and they're pushing me aside, is extremely offensive because they want to receive this coloring book of the left is the enemy. Right. Because, they'll be given they'll be given a platform by taking that angle. Oh yeah, we're the right wingers. They're neither right nor left wingers. And this characterology of the left, it doesn't deal with reality. You know what they say? It's anti-nature. It wants everything to be equal. It's against Christianity. All these things that they'll say. But they really they're buying into this stuff, this currency that the right-wing boomers have sent down the poop chute, by way of this piece of indigestion called Tanstaffel, and then into the millennial internet bubbles that pass this false currency around. About how, we've got to redeem Hitler or something. That's the problem. Not the idea that Hitler is a great evil that needs to be an idea that needs to be mitigated. You don't have to feel guilty about anything anyway. Holocaust denial and saying Hitler was a great guy is not going to. Those lies are not necessary to undo your guilt trips. You're of a different generation. You didn't do it. No sane person is trying to blame you. But don't you blame us. People who are, my Italian father or Italian American father served in World War II in the Far East. My Italian grandfather served in the American Army in World War One. My Polish side, of course, had nothing to do with they're Americans too, but don't lay guilt trips. I'm not going to let you lay guilt trips on people who were descended of the Allied side either, which is what you have to do. If you're going to redeem Hitler, you're going to wind up saying, "Oh well, the English, the eternal Anglo, it's all their fault. Oh, it's the Poles, all their fault." Well, bullshit. It's history at any rate. So yeah, there's the problem. Then you should go on a House of Commons channel. I don't know what that is. Uh, Um, well, it's loud music outside. I don't know what that's about. January 30th, and they're having an outside concert. That's pretty weird. So that's what you got to understand, Tiffany. And someone like, needless to say, someone like Claire Call is not going to understand the issues and not going to care. Um, Again, I've discussed. I've had a long commentary back and forth with, more from me than him, with Tan Staffel, and I'll go back into it again another day. But I don't want to. By the same token, I don't want to seem obsessive about it because I'm not. But it is important because like someone like Norman Hobbes will cite Tan Staffel as like a great inspiration and thought leader, and this is this is mistaken. We say mistaken credit. Just like Wolf Wall Street is got it backwards when he says that Tan Staffel is a great epistemologist, when that's exactly what he's not. He's operating on an epistemological blunder, which is what, when you're very logical like he is exactly the source of the greatest catastrophes that there are. um, and well, clerical. Again, someone new to the struggle, or coming, not new to the struggle, someone coming into this like her, she really does not have sufficient empathy and should be happy to be a contributor, just an ordinary contributor, but is not. And her critiques of me are not welcome. Oh, Conops is here. Speaking of liberal dirtbags. Conops, do you really think that I'm jealous of your girlfriend? I began the show asking the question: who's had more? Who's had sex with more men, your girlfriend or Millennial Booze? That's the question of the day. Ah! Oh, Conops. Conops. Go away. To give you an example of Clerico's lack of empathy, I had before a way of tucking this in. We're really doing a sharp turn from the discussion of the pro-Nazi people. I mean, one more remark I want to make, though. It's like, here is OV telling me what to do, right? Saying I should be open-minded about debating Hitler, and and I was dealing with this stuff with Tan Staffel back in 2014, when he was, I don't know if he was still a Bernie bro or hadn't yet become a Bernie bro at that point. A kiddo. And con ops, get a life. Um, I didn't expect it, but I didn't expect to have to deal with this issue. But here's another one. Before I move on to another issue. Was it 99 Iron Duke, the English Navy guy who lives in Australia? Completely committed to the marketing program, Characterology of the Left, because Paul Gottfried said so, therefore it must be true, right? I offered to talk to him, but doesn't talk to me. Talks instead to Colin Liddell, and who's running, a very kosher site over there at Affirmative Right. More than a little suspicious. And if you don't think so, Iron Duke, look into this guy Brett Stevens that Colin Liddell publishes. See who's serving and who's giving him a paycheck in all likelihood. And that's just one example. And what Colin Liddell was saying to you should have been obvious and shameful. What Colin Liddell was doing was saying that he was rendering this egregious false either or. You either see the kosher folks as basically, nothing like the greatest problem, and basically people who can be one of us, just the same, provided they're not too PC or whatever. Or you are a Nazi and you should just admit it. Sorry, Colin, but it doesn't sort out that way. And your site, Affirmative Right, is disingenuous. Then you would see obvious agents of what? Controlled opposition, damage control, like Paul Gottfried, as people who are, quote, on our side, as do so many, even people who really seem hip, like Thomas 777, and Iron Duke himself, and I was listening to some others, Charlemagne and I call him so Charlemagne. Who else was saying that? It seems most everybody of these, almost all these right wingers are suckered in by him and this, characterology of the left. Identity as right wingers, or neither left nor right, same thing. Keeps our people disorganized for lack of the depth grammar of the left, unionization and coalition forming. uh, and identifying with, us being about truth and inequality and against social justice. And can you imagine? I'm against social justice warriors. It's so stupid. These memes they fall for. I was talking about academic agent Daniel. Um, as I said, academic agent. It's very offensive to me in saying that he believes that he has this thing that's like that he calls the boomer truth regime. It's exactly like the kind of meme that would come out of Madison Avenue straight into the portfolio of Mike Enoch for his, the alt-right program of controlled opposition. He's doing exactly the Johnny-come-lately thing. Oh, yeah. I mean, if you're in the mainstream media, yeah, okay. Then it's true what academics saying that they're treating Hitler and the Nazis as the greatest evil. And he's saying he's acting like it's something new, and we've got to undo that. He doesn't understand that for decades now, the problem for white nationalism has been quite the opposite. That the big taboo within white nationalism is to criticize Hitler, is to not deny the Holocaust. It's like it's backwards world. And Ramos Paul doesn't understand this either. These guys who are these Johnny-come-latelys, are just that is the boomer quote truth regime that's got to be defended against. When you talk about what you want to do with Hitler redemptionism and Holocaust denial, maybe you don't want to do denial, but whatever. You're trying to alleviate guilt trips. Well, you don't need to do that to alleviate guilt trips. And he's just this is just the worst misdirection. It's the kind of stupidity that millennial woes is going with. You're just going to have to get used to it. Apologizing to Germany for Britain going to war against them. That's what an idiot that millennial woes is. It's like, take it to Hitler. He didn't have to start these wars, and he did. You can take it to the Kaiser too. Okay, that it wasn't all on them, but these people want to say it was all on America and all on England. Or all on anybody, any nation that thought they had the right to exist. The neighbors of Germany, France and Poland. No, it's springtime for Hitler. Winter for Poland and France. They're marching to a faster pace. Look out, here comes the master race. My point in saying that and putting the onus back on the German regimes for the two world wars is to get to the point where someone like 99 Iron Duke and others will finally say, look, it's history. And hindsight is 2020. But since it's 2020, let's look at it honestly. And let's, if you have 2020 hindsight, take a look at some of these Holocaust survival videos. Take a look at Dr. Christian Lindner, and you know, and then if you want to continue with that stuff, then we can just write you off as totally insane. Okay, so, but the good news, I'm not going to use these pill talk because I hated the Matrix. The good news is that with this crap set aside, and the people we're advocating, European peoples, distinguished. And it's not even a friend-enemy distinction. I'm becoming more and more skeptical of Carl Schmitt, friend enemies. That's the only way to gather people. Well, I don't think so. And and the exception, baloney. Nobody's beyond accountability. But with our people in order, and the kosher folks looked upon as a different people with different interests, can be a problem, a big one. But different people who were, we're looking for our autonomy, not to. It's our ultimate aim is autonomy and sovereignty, not to kill people. Anyway, with that established, or the innocence of our platform established, and our direction established, then we are free to begin to gather the DNA nations in order, and all the good things that come along with that. It's a great resource, and I'm looking very much forward to this project. Okay, so I'm going to put the link in the chat. If anybody wants to join it, we can talk about the left. This characterology of, oh no, it's the left. It's the left. Paul Gottfried sees the left. Okay, so we've been at it for an hour and a half now. That's a good show.
I mean, I hated that movie.
Oops.
I really did.
Yeah.
So it was oh yeah, that's another thing that I wanted to talk about. Him. He's a nice guy. He's a smart guy, kind of. Rams Paul, and his girlfriend's pretty smart too. Sasha, nice personality. She's cute, but they irritate me in some ways. They're talking about this recent, I don't know, call it controversy, issue with Neil Young criticizing Spotify for sponsoring Joe Rogan. And ridiculously wanting his songs to be pulled, even though he doesn't own his songs anymore. He sold the rights to them. Now, the thing that irritated me about Rams Paul, and this was probably to some extent a dig right at me because I've dug at him about this, is he took occasion to refer to Neil Young as a hippie about a dozen times or something, and as if that was part and parcel of the problem, being a hippie. Now, I've discussed how that is an important issue that's been obfuscated, and the hippies themselves were not articulate of the fact that they were manifesting the profoundest of motives, that is, the right of the male of the species to be and to not be subject to being so inherently unvaluable as to be disposable in war out of sheer custom and habit, tradition, whether war was warranted in the defense of our people, our borders and boundaries or not. They weren't articulate of that fact. The hippies weren't, and certainly not Neil Young. Now, it's a semi-awkward position. So I'm not going to, believe me, I'm not going to defend Neil Young's politics or any of the hippies for that matter. They were inarticulate. What I don't like is criticizing the hippies as hippies and blaming them as being the progenitors of liberal and radical anti-white politics. They were not. Where they were, they were not the source of that stuff. They do. You can blame them for being inarticulate. It wasn't an intellectual movement. They were about the synthesis of organic being, which is inarticulate by definition. It's not analytical. And they were also inarticulate because they're taking on the stigma of reversing the traditional trajectory, the upward and even militaristic trajectory, if necessary, of masculinity. They were about being the right of the male to exist. Not to say that you shouldn't be called upon to fight if you and your people are in imminent danger. This is not the issue. But Vietnam was not that. And that being not even 2 decades after World War II, or about 2 decades after World War, it's clear that some correction to this tradition and custom and habit of war was in order, and and that respect for our existence as white people, as white men, was in order. And this is what the hippies were manifesting and did not articulate, and it's an issue that is in need of articulation and defense to this day. So when someone like Sasha or what's her name from Red Ice, or any of these other trad women criticize hippies, it's extremely offensive. What were they supposed to do? To go to Vietnam and die? For nothing? Um, I mean, Rand Paul thinks that it's cool when he's criticizing hippies. He thinks he's doing like, you know, oh, the punks were criticizing it. Well, do you think the punk thing wasn't kosher? Well, of course it was. It was a kosher fashion design. Oh, we got to come up with a new shtick. Those hippies, those white guys, they thought that they had the right to exist. We can't have that. Lana, right? Lana Lockteff. And you have Sasha saying that she doesn't like the Beatles. You don't like. I mean, you don't like the. If someone says that they don't meet the Beatles, Beatles 65 and A Hard Day's Night, you don't like those. If you don't like those, that music, there's something very wrong with you, as far as I'm concerned. I can see not appreciating the Beatles psychedelic stuff. In context, it was like kind of like very refreshing and liberating, but it doesn't hold up that well outside of context. Not as some of it's not as good as their early stuff. Even something like Neil Young and Crosby, Stills and Nash. The politics suck, but the music really good. Now this was the connection to Carolyn Yeager. I wouldn't criticize Neil Young so much for his liberal politics, although that too, he's gotten worse, only worse with age. It's horrible, but for being sad, like Pink Floyd, and just miserable, and all of them playing into this notion of women as panacea, just these like this yearning and forlornness about women, and this like I'll do anything for you kind of attitude towards women that I call the female panacea. Carolyn Yeager was trying to say, well, why would you possibly? How could you possibly be swayed by this? It's like it's not. You're not swayed by this. These were times before the internet. You couldn't talk back, and if you had overwhelming emotional circumstances, antagonist circumstances, like many of us did, some of us did, I did. That was your outlet, and all you're hearing is about how the answer is women, and it's like it's a lot of pressure. And I just wanted to call attention to that being a problem worthy of critique. It's not. It's not the big issue that it was back in the day when music was the only recourse, when you didn't have the internet to interact with and to make your critical opinions be known. There's a lot of pressure, a lot of competition, and that's the kind of thing that someone like Claire Call is just completely, completely void of empathy. She'll never understand that circumstance, what it was like to be in that circumstance where there were the three controlled networks, and otherwise, maybe music, which was also controlled in a way. I mean, who was, it was Bob Geffen that was promoting and signing Crosby, Stills, and Nash and Young, right? Anyway, so how do we get to music again? Oh, Rams Paul, and let's talk about his girlfriend Sasha. And she's saying she doesn't like the Beatles. She says she likes Prince, and who else does she like? The hair metal bands. I guess maybe they have. I mean, among their screeching crap, they have a few good tunes. And well, I hope she doesn't like Queen. Anybody who likes Queen, well, I don't know what it's like. There's never mind. I do favor capital punishment. I'm not against capital punishment. Let's say, and but you probably like Bon Jovi better than the Beatles. I'm not big. It's like I'm not stuck on that old music. I'm tired of it myself. I don't listen to it anymore much myself. But and Michael Jackson. She says she likes Michael Jackson. How could anybody say that? You like Michael Jackson, but not the Beatles? I'm sorry. It's not. When somebody says that, it's not. It's not me. Oh yeah, and they said they didn't like Steve Winwood. Well, Steve Winwood's later music. Yeah, okay. Some of it wasn't the greatest, but his early music. Give Me Some Lovin'. I'm a Man that he did when he was 17 years old. I mean, just some Dear Mr. Fantasy. You like Dear Mr. Fantasy? Medicated Goo. Colored Rain. 40,000 Headmen. John Barleycorn Must Die. You think that Steve Winwood sucks? Are you kidding me? And I could go on and on with amazing songs. But you like Prince and and Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson didn't write. They didn't even write the song. Jackson 5 didn't even play their songs. They could dance. Yeah, they didn't play their songs. They had what were they called? They had those studio musicians playing for them. Clerical says anti-Semitism is a learning disability and a character defect or mental health issue. I don't think so, Claire. And this is why you're not to be trusted. Daniel wants to find a viable position between being anti-Semitic and being not violently anti-Semitic, like the other white nationalists. I have a viable position, Claire. What else do you say? Claire says, if you need to tell white nationalists that Hitler is not going to help them sell their political ideology to the right people, do you ever wonder what you're doing with these people? Well, I'm not talking to them. If people, that's not my audience. My audience is a to whom it may concern audience. But I'm sorry, but I don't agree with Colin Waddell and Aaron Duke that the kosher folks are unproblematic to the extent that they don't bear regular attention in the round of concerns. I've gone over that not only the niches that they have disproportionate influence in, But also, I'm satisfied that it's of a biological pattern with different interests to European peoples. And I look at these Holocaust survivor videos. I've been, listening to them for days now. People talking for hours on end about their experiences in Auschwitz and Sobibor, you begin to think, well, it's no wonder. it's and this is one of my beefs with Hitler too, is that this overcompensating reaction of his has stigmatized and like the whole project, eminently legitimate project of ethno-nationalism that should be and is on my platform non-supremacist, non-imperialist. And it's not about killing people, genociding people, exploiting people. I might have to fight in order to be heard. But truly, especially since not even my ancestors were Nazis, so I'm not about to be punished for that stuff. They might say that, oh, I'm doing something dangerous and being critical of Jewry. Well, I don't think so, and especially think that this platform is necessary again, because if this platform doesn't take that issue on, take it seriously with the gravity that it deserves, that's going to leave the Nazis, the true believers, with the argument that they are the only ones. People like Tan Staffel, that's the argument that he wants to make, that they're the ones who take it seriously, and they're the ones who have the right answer. And neither is true. They don't have the right answer, and they're not the only ones who recognize the gravity of that antagonism. I'll put the link in again. Claire, don't bother. You're not coming on. Claire, it's like, give it up. Don't make me ban you from the chat, Claire. Don't ever accuse me. Don't try to put words in my mouth. In one chat, you said, Claire, and this is unforgivable. You accused me of having designs to deport Jews. That's defamation. I never said that, and it's dangerous defamation. You tried to say that I was to put the word apartheid into my mouth. Why would I use that word for anything that I'm about? You tried to say that what I'm about is National Socialism. Why would I say that? I think the most offensive thing about National Socialism is that they're taking two terms, especially nationalism, which are in the ballpark of what would be semiotically correct for guidance of ethno-nationalism, as euphemisms for Nazism. Nazism is the word for Nazism. Early on, in my struggles against these neo-Nazis out and about. They had the nerve to tell me that, oh, you may call them National Socialists. It's like, listen, buddy, fuck you. I may call them Nazis. Colin Liddell is a beta male Boer. Colin Liddell is he's got a site there that's kissing the ass of the kosher folks totally, and it's rife with people who are. Well, I don't know what Brett Stevens is, but he's more than suspicious. It's clear that he's something, put up to running interference for the kosher folks, and probably some sort of alphabet agent on a payroll. And this is the kind of people though that Colin Liddell has. He's always running interference for the kosher folks. And there's a difference between what I do and what he does. I'm just not going to an extreme in my defense against them, whereas he is actively saying that anybody who looks critically upon them, seriously critically upon them, from time to time he will, but always quick to reestablish his kosher credentials. I'm surprised at Iron Duke that might be kind of like a theoretical laziness on his part. It's very easy to rely on a right-wing objectivist basis. Most people do. It's not easy to grapple with the radical basis, with the thrownness and the implications, death grammar. The implication being, as I said, to come to terms with the true depth grammar of the left as unionization and what we've got to do about it in order to hold up against this hegemony. Is it possible to be a white nationalist without being anti-Semitic? I would say, well, that's a loaded word, anti-Semitic. But is it possible to be a white nationalist without seeing not a good one? It's not possible to be a good and sound and trustworthy white nationalist without viewing the kosher folks as not white, as an outside group, which has different interests, who take care of their own, and who are frequently indifferent, if not antagonistic, as a pattern to our interests as white. So the answer is no, Claire. It's not possible. But you should not. It's not. You should not be so anti-Semitic as to think it's necessary to kill anybody, to alone genocide, to think it's necessary to deny the Holocaust, to think it's necessary to redeem Hitler. It's not. This kind of thing is not necessary. But to see them as an outside group, another group, with different interests, conflicting interests. Yeah, it's not possible to be a sound white nationalist. And by white nationalist, I mean white is the tag for European people that's used, especially when for the sake of their diaspora, because it's awkward to call European people white or European in America or Australia, South America, wherever they are, that's outside of Europe. Whereas it can be a little bit abused as a term within Europe, because sometimes the Nordicists try to say that the Southern Europeans aren't white, which is obnoxious. It's just a tag for European that's more convenient to use than European once you're outside of Europe. Okay. World Economic. Who is that? It looks like someone. No, they came and went. It was looking to me like Ricardo. Anyway, he's not somebody I want to talk to. I'll put the link in again. But again, when I defend hippies, it's about defending being for white men, which was the underlying motive, the right to exist, which is where we're at existentially as a people. I'm not, saying their music was better than other music. I'm not saying that their style is necessary. Long hair and everything else is necessary. The drug use, whatever. Not particularly nostalgic for those times anymore. Who is this?
So it penetrates. So yesterday I was at a reception for Prime Minister Trudeau, and
What?
I knows. Oh, yesterday I was at a reception and so on. So we penetrate the cabinets. So yesterday.
Okay, that was pretty funny. When I was a little boy back in Germany, I was standing on the corner. And the man came up to me and he said, "What are you doing here standing on the corner? You should not be here standing on the corner. Come on, get off of the corner." Yes. German accents can be funny sometimes. That's part of the reason why I find it cute sometimes, the clumsiness of it in tension with, like, say, a cute German woman can be kind of titillating. Well, Gilbert Zagato says that I'm saying WN who are not anti-Semitic are often Jews. Well, I think that you can be, you can be a white advocate. You could, in a way, you can, but you can't be a member of, you can't be white in the sense of what I mean by it, which is European. You might have partial European admixture, but these are a different people, a Middle Eastern people. So where are we? I was having conflicts with my conflicts with Bowery and guest worker over there. Joey writes that's been an ongoing affair. But I want to give it a rest for a moment. Feels good. It's good to put that boomer stuff behind. All this STEM boomer reactionaries. Then there was a little boy back in Germany. I was standing on the corner. And a man comes up to me and says, "What are you doing here? Standing on the corner. You should not be here standing on the corner. Come on, get off the corner." Oh. All right. Adding the link again. Do you hear that? Sasha and Rams Paul saying that they don't like Steve Winwood. I defy anybody to look up old Steve Winwood music, whether it's with Spencer Davis or Traffic, especially John Barleycorn Must Die, or just the Winwood album, the Winwood Greatest Hit collection that is stuff ranging from Spencer Davis to early Traffic. Amazing. I'm tired of it. It's like I'm not saying that. I like old Jethro Tull. I don't like these people's politics at all. John Barlow tune was a great tune. It was a classic tune, but that's not the only one. There's many good tunes around it. That's the thing. And the guy, a lot of people wanted to. A lot of white guys wanted to sound black. We actually could sound very naturally. Sounded like some black in a good way. But Sasha and Rams Paul saying that Steve Winwood sucks. Give me a break. Again, it's important to defend hippies in the sense that the kosher folk have used that as they've pandered to wing reactionaries against that, and tried to divert from the underlying cause, which is the most profound cause for white men. And they try to blame, they want to blame the 60s and the hippies for civil rights, which was a kosher thing all the way, and for free love, which was very much Freud and Marcuse. Even to the extent that Hugh Hefner and to some extent Helen Gurley Brown and others were influential. They were relying on that kind of like Freudian stuff. Okay, Albert Kinsey is not. But these things were not. native. They were not. They were not. It was not. This was not. This was an affectation. In as much as it was around the hippie stuff. Because your free love, your women being solicited from everywhere. That's not being for men. That's pressure. That's your most important life resource being taken arbitrarily. That's your boundaries being violated. So that and civil rights and black power had nothing to do with it. And yet, and just liberalism in general, nothing to do with the hippie motive. Not going to Vietnam, not wanting to be drafted in a war which had no clear and imminent danger. Yeah. The right of white men to exist. Yeah. That had a lot to do with it, and still does. So I take very great offense when Lana or Rams Paul or Sasha or what's her name? Blonde in the Belly of the Beast, or any of these other trad women, blame hippies. Even I don't even like it when they talk about lefties. There's a reason why Hitler was popular, pretty popular with women, and not a good reason. As I've said, when females are unsocialized, as they would be unsocialized with a Hitler-esque concept of might makes right, because that would operating on natural fallacy would be below praxis and below the structuring of group accountability, which is what socialization requires. But operating on that basis, rupturing accountability, they're pandered to in their most base puerile incitement to genetic competition. And on some very, very primitive level, it's okay for them, because even if their men don't win, they're just going to breed with the winner. That's not to be respected. That's females being unsocialized. And that's why I look upon some of these right-wing trad women with every bit as much distrust as I do the feminist women. Well, maybe they're trying, okay? But there is that misguidance there. There's the Christianity, there's the Jesus, and there's the Hitler. Claire, did you say that I have a proposal for a union to sound like apartheid to me? However, he dislikes me pointing this out. Yes, I do, and don't do it again, or I'm kicking you out of the chat even. it's not apartheid to unionize your people in their defense. It's not to defend our species, because we're not going into another country and doing whatever the apartheid regime did. Don't try to do that, Claire. I'll be right back. Anti-Semitism, Clark calls this anti-Semitism is thought crime because anti-Semites are obviously quarreling with God's decision to make Jews his chosen people, which means they're suffering from deadly sin of pride. Who is suffering? Well, I discussed Christianity time back, and this Adam Green guy was going on politically provoked and elsewhere with this idea of Christianity as controlled opposition. He was being given pretty much, if not credit for the idea, credit for a new promoter of or like having this new idea. Well, and he did say that he got it from a book, not from me, maybe, or maybe he was steered by people who heard me talking about it. But I was looking back through the archives and see that I was discussing Christianity as controlled opposition back in 2013, before anybody says that Adam Green is so original about that. And of course, I've discussed it more recently as a red cape, an egregious one. Basically a red caping of our moral order, which is profoundly necessary, and a profound. I mean, I can't imagine anything more destructive than having an entire false moral order and confused, not even moral order, imposed on us with its golden rule, where the silver rule should be. Oh God, it's sick with the guilt trips that it lays on, from the original sin to even if you think about this, you've as good as done it. It gets right into your head. And then saying that that if you don't hate your family, if you hold your family above Jesus, that you are an antichrist. This is appalling. Then saying that if you don't believe in the physical existence of Jesus, that you are an antichrist. And when in fact there was no physical man, there was no historical figure. And if there was, people would have been talking about him at the time, and nobody was. He didn't exist. Just appalling. Love your enemies. Wow. Uh, oh, toxic purity spiral. Um, yeah, I was talking last time. I think about. I began the show last time talking about the connection between uh, accountability and structure of accountability through this concept of unionization and the etymology of the word religion, king, realm, regia, the ligaments holding it together, holding the realm together, the people together. And then with that, of course, the necessity for, unlike what Semiagog is trying to do with his phobia to language, is wish to return to the innocence of animal mood signs, like territorial sense and whatnot, kind of trajectory. GW's in the similar mindset, totally reacting to the sophistry of the kosher folks, trying to get into some absolute foundation. Nothing arbitrary about it. But both emergentism and hermeneutics serve not only to stave off this Cartesian anxiety, but they put into operation systemic homeostasis and autonomy and sovereignty. In the case of hermeneutics, with the liberation from facticity, that is to say, the capacity through language, concepts, historical perspective, systemic perspective, to transcend the arbitrary facticity of the moment, of the episode, of specific relationships, in favor of the pattern, connection to the pattern of our people historically, for its best aspects that are transcendent of the flaws of our people. There's enough bad ones, and our own flaws. That transcendent aspect is like, one of the things that religion is sought out to do. And we commemorate the profounder acts that are necessary to reconstructing that pattern, whether it's a baptismal ceremony or a marriage ceremony. We revere our ancestors and we uphold the pattern in our nascent religion, because we can't see little white kids come into a world like this where they're left to the wolves, they're given some completely confounding self-destructive bullshit like Christianity. No, we have to have a real moral order. There's no getting around morals. There's always going to be some things that are obligatory, some things that are prohibited, some things that are legitimate, some things that are blocked. There's physical or tangled. There's things that just deal with it in a brute sense as well, factual things. But yes, marriage is important, and people need help in making the right choice for such an important choice, if it's to be lifelong, of course. But we have to have that option. That's sacred. That the option is sacred. We have to have that option outside of the Abrahamic religions. Again, so that they can't say that they're the ones who are doing that. And so that we have that loyalty in place to stave off cynicism, skepticism, to maintain group loyalty, to incentivize loyalty. All right, well, who's this? Frihar Baran. Yeah, hello.
I am the Red Baron von Richthofen, and you are responsible for the spilling of the precious German blood of many of my finest and my blondest friends. I have waited many months to...
Well, I think he was having a little joke there, but it might have even been fairly harmless, but I can't take a chance because one I don't I guess I could edit these things out if it got really bad, but who wants to be bothered doing that? That voice sounded fairly familiar. I wonder if it's somebody that I know. Let's see. Okay. I'll put the... Put the link in one more time. And I'll give it a few more minutes. Let's see, it's 7:48 here, it's 6:48 UK time. It's 1:48 New York, 12:48 Chicago, 11:48 Denver, and 10:48 Los Angeles. The Los Angeles Crabs in their Don't Hit Me While I Do My Street Work uniforms are playing the San Francisco Fudge Packers. San Francisco Fudge Packers. It's Millennial Rose team. Is it Kyler Coop? Is this this good white receiver that the Rams got? Colin Coop? Something Coop. It's good. I haven't seen a white wide receiver in years. Oh, not that I've been watching. I just caught the highlights. I used to be a Los Angeles Rams fan a long time ago. When they had the blue and white uniforms, which were much nicer. I guess Tiffany's not going to join us today. That's a shame. Wasn't it fun having her talking about her surfer days and whatnot? She said that she has gotten some threatening harassment. That's a shame. Maybe I shouldn't have left her picture in the last video. Can you imagine though? Because she reached out to some of the victims, the parents of the victims of Sandy Hook. Oh, these right wingers, they're crazy. That's all. They're just crazy. This is the inherent instability of the right. This is what, you know. That's why you have what's his name on Luke Ford, Commander Scoop. You know, a few years back, he was heading the American Nazi Party, right, at Charlottesville, and helping Craig Cobb set up, try to set up a little Nazi community there in Leith, North Dakota. And now he's like pablum, liberal Girl Scout. Not even interesting. It's you would expect someone coming from his situation to be. It's not though. Oh, I take everybody as they come, one at a time. I met this colored guy, and he was told me that once somebody threw a rock at him, it's just so terrible. Oh man, that's why they want you. That's why they want you to be a right winger. The same thing happened to what's his name. Angela John Gage. They went from being, it's like, it's enraging me. It's like, yeah, no, the National Socialists, these are the ones that are the real serious ones. And now, in many ways, just talking like a standard liberal. That's what happens. Don Black's on Derek Black. It lacks correctivity. It's not accountable to reality and to our people and their real life needs. It's not practical, in a word, and it's reactionary. It's rigid, easily manipulable by our enemies, and it's prone to infiltration. Christianity being a great example of that. Well, just become a Christian, and you're one of us. Oh, Rams Paul was saying that he wants hippies to die. Well, it's like since Christians hate life so much and they hate this world, and they're eager to see the afterworld. Why don't you do us all a favor? And see if you can visit your maker a little bit sooner. Yeah, I mean, I don't get off on humiliating Christians, but I really I've taken so much crap from those people, and I'm satisfied that their religion is not even sufficient. It's not even moral, and I don't. And then you had Eculux allowing OV to trash me like that. Now you can keep your Christianity. We need morality based on reality and based on the real practical requirements of their life. Okay, I'm gonna give it to 2:35 since for some reason the timer reads 5 minutes fewer than it actually winds up showing. And if nobody that I want to talk to comes on by then, we'll end the show. I can leave this one. Not have been my most inspired performance, but I had to cover some old ground. And so it is, and I did that. The good thing about about repeating is that it can be a bit more accurate, if not as, even if lacking some of the vitality of the first go round. David will be streaming shortly. I couldn't care less. I have zero interest in listening to David. Zero. He's tactless enough. He's overly confident enough in his wordsmithery to be open about some of the things that he wants to do, like promote open borders and, mixing in a lot of people because it's good for business and for maybe he sees it as safer for his folks. He's honest about that. But, well, so what? I've talked to enough kosher folks so that, I think that a lot of people start up wanting to talk to him because it's a new experience. Talking to kosher folks is not new for me. What did I say about Adam Green again? What I said about Adam Green was that he was sort of being given credit for promoting this idea of Christianity as controlled opposition. And I wanted to note that I've been talking about Christianity as controlled opposition. I'm on record since 2013. I was calling it a Jewish trick back in 1990. I've done that forever, but controlled opposition specifically, there's a post I made in 2013. He admitted, when I accused him of lifting it from me, probably by way of 4chan or something, he did say that he got the idea from some book that he read, which is possible. It's a logical inference. It doesn't have to be that I'm the sole progenitor of this idea. But I was talking about it way, way before him. Christianity is controlled opposition. Jen's not the only one who's talking about Jews being responsible for Christianity and Islam. A lot of people were talking about that way before her. A lot of people. It's very common. Okay, I am about to shut down. So thanks for listening, everybody. It was a nice short show, so that leaves a lot more time on StreamYard to do another stream this week in between now and next Sunday. Probably come back next Sunday. So Sunday might not be a good day for a lot of people. I might try Saturdays or another day instead. But there you have it. Thank you very much for listening. Bye for now. 14.